The whisper that shook the palace began as the morning light filtered through the ancient windows of Windsor Castle with that peculiar English softness that seems to soften even the hardest truths. At precisely 11 minutes past 9, the first murmurs drifted through the palace corridors, carried by staff whose discretion had been legendary for decades, yet something felt different, an electric anticipation in the air, as though the very stones of the castle sensed history was about to shift. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had always been a master of mystery, and for months the world had watched in a frenzy of speculation, tabloids spinning theories and social media igniting with endless conjecture, while the palace maintained its ironclad silence. On this morning, however, that silence was poised to break. In his private study, Prince William drummed his fingers against the mahogany desk once belonging to his grandmother, weighed down by the enormity of the decision before them. This was not just the naming of a child, but a statement of legacy, direction, and identity for a 1,000-year-old institution. His thoughts wandered to his mother Diana's grace under scrutiny, to his father King Charles III's expectations, and above all to Catherine and their children, the family they had fought to protect. The decision to welcome a fourth child had surprised many, for after Prince Louis's birth in 2018, the world had presumed their family complete. George the future king, Charlotte the spirited princess beloved globally, and Louis the expressive youngest who had become an internet sensation. Yet Catherine always reminded William that life rarely follows a script. The pregnancy had shocked even some within the royal family, and Catherine endured another brutal round of hyperemesis gravidarum, forcing her into seclusion and fueling a storm of misguided speculation. She bore it with resilience shaped by both the wounds and wisdom of royal history, balancing duty with motherhood just as she had admired in Diana and Elizabeth II. The birth itself was astonishingly private for the digital age, a quiet delivery at the Lindo wing, no encampment of photographers, no early announcements, only a simple confirmation afterward that mother and daughter were well, the baby's sex revealed but her name withheld. Now, in rooms steeped in centuries of history, William and Catherine prepared to release that name, after countless drafts of statements and exhaustive discussions with King Charles and senior royals. Royal names carry weight messages encoded in tradition, politics, and legacy. From Elizabeth Alexandra Mary to Charles Philip Arthur George, from Diana's modernizing influence to the considered choices of George Alexander Louis, Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, and Louis Arthur Charles, each name had been a deliberate step in shaping a monarchy navigating modernity. Bookmakers speculated, historians analyzed, and the public invested emotionally in children who symbolized their nation. The balancing act was immense. Two modern invited accusations of abandoning tradition. Two traditional risks seeming out of touch. William delved into archives while Catherine considered playground nicknames and the experience of a child growing up under relentless scrutiny. The name also needed to resonate across the Commonwealth's 56 nations, easy to pronounce, culturally respectful, and globally enduring. In the end, the name they chose formed a bridge between past and future, honoring legacy while embracing the evolving identity of a monarchy watched by billions. That the monarchy now served was a guiding consideration throughout the naming debate, with Catherine favoring certain names that William vetoed and vice versa, and with family suggestions politely acknowledged before being set aside. King Charles gravitated toward traditional options, Queen Camilla toward something slightly more modern. And even Prince Harry, despite the strained relationship, sent a private suggestion carrying sentimental meaning for both brothers, while Princess Anne stayed characteristically aloof except for remarking that whatever name they chose would inevitably draw criticism. The late Queen Elizabeth had long set the standard for such decisions, naming her own children with a deliberate blend of tradition, personal preference, duty, and maternal instinct. Choices William and Catherine studied closely, learning from her successes and the rare missteps. When the long-anticipated revelation finally arrived, the announcement unfolded with meticulously timed precision. At exactly 2 p.m., the Palace Press Office issued a statement to the Press Association following generations-old protocol, simply and elegantly declaring that the Prince and Princess of Wales were delighted to name their daughter Rose Alice Diana. 3 names rich with significance and destined to fuel weeks of public fascination. Rose, an unprecedented first name among their children, resonated immediately as both symbolic and intimate, evoking the English Tudor Rose that once united warring factions into a dynasty, recalling Catherine's grandmother Rose Aswith whose quiet strength shaped her early life, and echoing figures like Rose Gilman and Rose Windsor, women remembered within the royal orbit for loyalty, grace, and discretion. It struck a rare balance, traditional without being stale, fresh without feeling frivolous. Alice, the first middle name, carried equally profound weight, honoring Princess Alice of Battenberg, Prince Philip's mother, whose extraordinary life born deaf, fluent through lip reading, a rescuer of a Jewish family during the Nazi occupation of Greece, a founder of a nursing order, and a woman defined by fierce compassion embodied the values William and Catherine hoped to instill in their children. Yet the name also nodded to Queen Victoria's daughter, another Princess Alice known for her activism and refusal to remain confined by the era's expectations of royal women. Diana, the second middle name, surprised no one but still stirred deep emotion. Though already used for Charlotte, its inclusion again affirmed Diana's enduring presence in William's life, a homage to her legacy of vulnerability, courage, and a reimagined approach to royal duty. Public reaction erupted instantly. Social media trends ignited. Florists reported a spike in rose orders, baby name websites crashed, and television networks broke into programming for expert commentary. Some hailed the choice as a masterstroke of symbolism, while critics argued it was either too cautious or too bound by tradition, and skeptics questioned the relevance of hereditary privilege altogether. Within the family, reactions unfolded more quietly. King Charles praised the name for uniting multiple branches of the family. Queen Camilla smiled broadly as cameras caught her leaving Clarence House, and Prince Harry and Meghan sent a private message described by insiders as warm and focused on the joy of new life. Princess Anne offered her understated approval, a perfectly sensible choice, which for her amounted to high praise, while Edward and Sophie expressed delight at the continuation of the Alice namesake. Even distant relatives found themselves drawn into the discussion about what this name might signal for the monarchy's evolution. To understand why Rose Alice Diana felt so carefully calibrated, one had to situate it within the monarchy's delicate moment. A family balancing pressures to modernize yet preserve mystique, to appear relatable without diluting centuries of tradition, and to justify its existence in a climate increasingly skeptical of inherited privilege. Every symbolic decision, from fashion to philanthropy, carried weight, and the choice of Rose, steeped in English national symbolism at a time of political and cultural fragmentation, implicitly reasserted the monarchy's identity-forming role in a United Kingdom shaken by Brexit, Scottish independence debates, Northern Ireland's fragile peace, and rising Welsh distinctiveness. The Tudor Rose, once a symbol of reconciliation after civil war, now hinted at hope for unity amid national fracture, while Alice underscored the monarchy's lineage of service, resilience, and principled courage inspired by figures like Prince Philip's mother. The monarchy itself loomed over every consideration, and William knew that invoking Alice's legacy aligned the royal family with qualities the modern institution desperately needed: courage, compassion, humility, and service rooted in genuine moral conviction. Princess Alice's story, her deafness, her linguistic brilliance, her bravery in sheltering a Jewish family during the Holocaust, her recognition as righteous among the nations, had transformed her from an overlooked royal into a figure of universal moral authority, allowing Rose's name to resonate far beyond palace walls. Diana, of course, remained the most emotionally charged element of the name. Even 27 years after her death, she cast a long shadow over the monarchy, her legacy alternately celebrated and contested, symbolizing warmth, humanity, and accessibility to some, while for others representing the risks of emotional volatility and media entanglement. William had spent his adulthood trying to honor his mother without repeating her missteps, learning from both her advocacy and her painful public unraveling, and by giving Rose the name Diana, he was signaling that her memory would endure, not be erased or softened by time. Yet names alone could not shape the future. Rose herself would determine her path. As the fourth child, she would never be expected to reign, yet she might ultimately become a crucial stabilizing force within the family. Much as Catherine had experienced as a fourth child in her own family, understanding the quiet pressures and freedoms that come with existing just outside the brightest spotlight, William, mindful of the dangers of shielding royal children too much or too little, was determined to strike the delicate balance that would allow Rose to grow into a grounded, empathetic adult. Her christening 6 weeks after birth at the Chapel Royal reflected this careful approach. Intimate yet steeped in tradition, modestly attended yet symbolically rich, captured in photographs that projected unity and emotional warmth as Catherine held Rose in the historic Huntington lace christening gown while William stood with their other children gathered closely around. But even as the images circulated, questions about Rose's future loomed large. What role she would play in a modernizing monarchy, what causes she might champion, how she would navigate the contradictions of privilege and service. History offered examples from Princess Anne's relentless dedication to Princess Margaret's glamorous turbulence to Lady Louise Windsor's understated balance of privacy and duty, but none provided a blueprint. Catherine and William knew they could only guide, not dictate, Rose's path, instilling early the idea that her title was not a shield or a burden but a responsibility to serve with integrity. All of this unfolded against the backdrop of a monarchy whose future felt increasingly uncertain. Younger generations questioned its relevance, affection for the institution skewed older, and events like Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee showed that public devotion tended to attach to individuals rather than the structure of monarchy itself. In this shifting landscape, William and Catherine understood that they represented the monarchy's best argument for continued relevance. Stable, relatable, modern yet respectful of tradition, and Rose's birth became part of that narrative. A symbol of continuity and evolution, traditional yet personal, designed to reassure without stagnating. Still, strategy could only carry them so far. Rose was not a symbol but a person who would choose her own direction, whether that meant embracing royal duties or carving a quieter life beyond them. As the sun set over Windsor Castle on the night of her christening, William, cradling his sleeping daughter, felt the weight of generations and whispered promises only a father could make to protect her, to teach her that character mattered more than titles, to let her become whoever she was meant to be. When Catherine joined him, their shared silence spoke of the improbable journey they had taken together, the merging of two worlds into a family that now felt complete. Rose Alice Diana was not just another royal child but a new chapter in a story still being written, her name destined to be analyzed and discussed for decades, yet meaningful above all because it belonged to their daughter, a child whose worth was not defined by succession or ceremony. The revelation of her name marked not an ending but a beginning, a signal that as the Wales family grew, the monarchy's story continued to unfold. What part Rose would play in shaping Britain's future remained unknown, but the name she carried would inspire, challenge, and endure for generations.